Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Bizaway, TravelTech company raising 35 million from Mayfair Equity Partners, kind of marking what has been happening in the travel tech sector. So, Nick, we've seen there is some movement in the travel tech industry, and it's interesting to see how it's moving again.
Yeah, I agree with you. So there have been a few rounds in the last few years in the travel tech industry, but in specific areas, and this is one of those areas. So corporate travel, probably one of the latest bastions where traditional corporate agencies were still offering their services to companies, and now technology is addressing also that problem. So self-service automation and simplifying life for corporates to handle travel.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's also kind of checks with what has been happening with the post-pandemic way of working. So talking about remote work, so travel is again on the rise. People are moving, companies are moving again, and that's definitely good news and definitely projects toward a new way of working. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's corporate travel. It's not about commuting, as you say. So events are still eventing, so things are still happening around, and probably the world is coming back to some kind of new normal where people, well, still meet every now and then. So corporate travel
Awesome.
has come back for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about Mayfair Equity Partners. Here again, we've been seeing a few private equity sort of dipping their toes into what's been happening in the VC ecosystem. So that's definitely something worth to notice. PE, especially in Italy, have been very, I would say, aware of the VC space, especially on later round. So maybe Series B or Series C, European size, I would say. And more private equities are actually entering VC rounds. So in this case, Mayfair Equity Partners with 2 billion under management. Basically, they've been working on different verticals, including management buyouts in general. So probably from both a financing and an advisory standpoint, but also growth capital. So again, private equity is definitely interesting in what has been what traditionally maybe in the US is later stage funds. So that's how Europe is kind of evolving.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, in Europe, the borders between venture capital and private equity are blurrier than in the United States. So a Series B round could easily be led by a VC fund or a growth equity fund, and they would look very similar. Not, for example, that in the announcement for Bizaway, there is no mention of the round series. So that's an indication of how there's might be a VC round, but as it is made by private equity firm, it is not using the same language as VC. So
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. On the same note, let's talk about Hlpy, roadside assistant startup raising 18 million in a round led by Nextalia, SGR, Alkemia Capital, and previous investors, including the Techshop, CDP VC, and Simest. So again, here we have like some classically private equity companies, well, at least SGRs that started as private equity, dipping their toes into the VC space. So Hlpy again, this is a company that we mentioned a few episodes back. So glad that they basically did this big round. And Nextalia did a lot of private equity deals, including distressed credit. So not sort of VC oriented, but with this deal, they definitely mark a different way of approaching investments.
Yeah, and to add some more information from the announcements, the company aims at completing at least an acquisition already with a target already announced in Germany, so to expand internationally. That's
Yeah, that's
interesting, right?
interesting. Expansion might be the playbook that private equity now use to invest in venture capitals. So like we remember when Bending Spoons raised the mega round, and then a bunch of acquisition followed. Maybe that's how they're approaching the problem, where a very clear and disciplined plan for acquisition is laid out, and maybe that's how private equity firms are becoming more and more comfortable with the venture capital investing.
Yeah, as we said last time or a couple of episodes ago, in Europe the market is more fragmented. So different states, different nations, languages, and policies and laws. So if you want to scale internationally, probably acquisitions is a very viable way to approach the strategy. So
Absolutely.
nothing new in this sense.
Absolutely. It's an old playbook with a little bit of adjustments, but definitely something that has been working. So definitely good news. All right, let's talk about Web3 and blockchain. Once in a while, we've seen we see a pulse happening again. So definitely good job to Young Platform raising 2.6 million from Azimut. Azimut was already one of the main investors back in their first round. So good job into them, like kind of evolving the company. And then secondly, let's talk about Magic Block, US-based but Italian-funded crypto startup raising 3 million from Andreessen Horowitz. So Magic Block was part of the crypto accelerator from Andreessen Horowitz, and now they're doubling down in their technology, which mostly is a Web3 application of Solana into gaming. So very interesting angle, pretty technical, I would say. But Web3 is becoming complex, it's taking different turns. Very interesting to see where it's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, on Young Platform, this is, a good round, even though last time they raised like 11, 16 million. So it was much bigger round a couple of years ago. So, I mean, this round signals that, something might not be great, but still, hopefully the market will be picking up again. And this is the round that will, allow the company to continue growing. And on Web3 and gaming, well, I mean, A16Z are probably the biggest investor in crypto and in gaming at this time. So it is interesting. I'm very, very happy to see an Italian team raising from them.
Awesome. All right, let's talk about Neva SGR. So Neva is the venture arm of Intesa Sanpaolo, one of the biggest Italian banks, announcing two new funds, Neva 2 and Neva 2 Italia, aiming to raise overall about $500 million in total capital to be deployed. So again, interesting play. Neva has been very active in the past 5 years. In the venture space, not only in Italy, I would say. So they always, since the inception, they've been really looking into Europe and internationally. So it's not just for Italy, which is a very interesting strategy. Well, it makes sense. It's an international bank, so that's makes sense for them. With this angle, probably they're gonna not only keep the strategy going and alive, but also sort of focusing and refocusing in Italy. That was my interpretation. What do you think, Nick?
Well, from the announcement, if I got it right, they're planning to raise a main fund with a target of 400 million, and then Italy only fund with a target of 100 million. So that's a very nice amount of money. With the bank committing 200 million in total, something along those lines. So the strategy will be quite foreign oriented. And in the previous funds, they invested quite a bit abroad, Israel a lot. And in the announcement, they actually announced the new funds, the number two of the series, as they were announcing the first distribution by the first exit from the previous funds. So awesome. The circle of life of capital. Yes.
Awesome.
Even though being probably the first or second biggest banks in Italy, it helps a lot to have fundraising. I'm not jealous at all. Not at all.
No, definitely good. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's conclude with the new animal entering the Italian venture ecosystem, which is essentially Tech Europe Foundation. So Fondazione Politecnico di Milano Bocconi University, ION, and FSI are establishing this new foundation, which essentially is dedicated to support the Italian ecosystem in startups. They're really ambitious. They plan to actually host about 1,000 startups per year and deploy up to 100 million of those of capital for those companies that have been like sort of I would say incubated, but it's not clear yet. But probably like they go through some form of program there. But again, it's interesting. It's kind of foundations are not typical operators, I would say. So it's interesting that they're like building something around this concept with such a big scale of ambition.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, looks like a moonshot. I mean, a lot of capital, a lot of investments in that area, in the outskirts of Milan that will be renovated to host startups across a lot of verticals, and patient capital to be invested in those startups. So their goal is to have 1 billion of investments somehow attracted. It's not clear from where, but it sounds a bit like, in some sense, I don't want to be, too much the project in Paris. Help me out.
Like
big
the station project. Yeah.
Station F.
Station F, exactly. Yeah.
It clicks in the same direction.
Interesting.
With, just from from the outside. But are we going to have our own Station F?
Maybe like a fancy Station F, like a very Italian fancy Station F. That can be cool. That can be really cool. Yeah. All right, Nick, thank you so much for joining. This concludes this week's episode of The Week in Italian Startup. Thanks everyone for listening, and until next time.
Ciao, Jack. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody. See you in a week.